am I doing? Well, this fella that came in the office today, he said, I'll give you a penny for your thoughts. And so I just put one penny on there and started talking. I've been talking all day, and he just gave me these quarters and I just kept talking and giving him my thoughts. And after about 4 or 5 hours, he gave me a whole roll and said, if you'll shut up, I'll just give you the whole thing.
Good deal.
Welcome to
Hello,
London
everybody.
Coin and Collectables. Got to get all the tape off
Yeah.
my face.
Been better if maybe you'd accidentally left one on there or
Yeah.
something.
Well, you know, I could put one in my nostril or something like that. Today, one of my favorite topics. Mike has been so gracious to talk about a lot of things I don't know anything about, but I'm proud to say I do know a few things about pennies, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
I'm actually expecting an education today.
Education.
Some things I may not know, I guarantee you're probably going to be able to pick right up on a run with us.
Well, I'll do my very best, but I do know this, that I asked Brother Mike, what are you going to expand on when it comes to pennies? Because pennies is a big deal. I mean, there's a lot of pennies. And he said, well, I'm going to talk about the small cents today. And so there are large cents, American, and there's small cents. And so today we're going to be talking about the category of small cents.
And the half cent. We don't have a half cent today. We're going to have a half cent.
We're going to talk about the half cent too?
No, not today. We will, though.
Okay, eventually. All right. But we're going to talk about small cents today. Now, I will tell you that collecting pennies is one of the biggest collectible items in numismatics. Now, is it bigger than silver? No, it's not, because not only do you have silver stackers, but you have people who love silver, and I love silver, to collect silver. And silver is more valuable just by the nature of the metal, and it is also highly traded. And so you know, I can't say that pennies are more popular than silver, but they are definitely three of collectibles. And once you start delving into pennies and collecting pennies, the amount of knowledge that there is to know is vast. And I most certainly do not know it all. And I learn something new every day. And I will testify before you get started, because you're a Baptist preacher and you won't shut up once you start going. You ever get accused of that?
Yeah, a few times. I think now I've just pretty well got used to it.
Got used to it. Mike's my good friend, so I'm just teasing so that y'all out there don't get offended, okay?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Great
all good.
peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. So
That's
you
right.
shouldn't be offended if I'm not offended.
There you go. But I've been collecting pennies since I was a kid. And I've had some pennies my entire life. My grandfather, when he was alive, he collected pennies, and he's the one that sparked my interest in that. He always had a legend that he had a very valuable penny, and that my uncle broke into his penny collection, and he went in there to get them out, and a bunch of his pennies were gone. And he caught Uncle Mike. He confessed up that he went in there and stole a bunch of his pennies and went down and bought some cigarettes with them.
Oh, no.
And Grandpa had lost his valuable prized penny. So I really don't know if that story is true or not, but I do know that my grandfather told that story directly to me, so I believe it 100%.
Now, wasn't that like the 44 steel or 43 copper?
Yeah, something of that nature. Yeah,
Wow.
he had that penny, and was very proud of it. But when he passed away, when my grandpa passed away in 1987, nobody in the family wanted his pennies. He had a really nice collection of wheat pennies, and so I asked for them, and Grandma Spellacy gave them to me, and I've had them my entire life, and I still have all of those pennies except for the ones I gave to my sister. who is also into collecting pennies and other monies as well. And so that's a shout out to my sister Heather right there. But pennies, man, I love them. I love learning about them. I love studying them, and I have just a great love for them. So small cents, Brother Mike. How about you throw some definitions out there for us? What is a small cent?
Okay, so this may be something interesting. I know Keaton already knows this, but something interesting you guys may not know is that we do not actually have a penny here in America.
That's true.
The only people that makes pennies are overseas. We don't have a penny, so what we have is we have a cent, and our cent is because it is exactly 1/100th of a dollar. And so what we have is you're going to hear some things like the flying cent, the Indian head, the Lincoln head. You're also going to hear about the steel, the silver, and then there, of course, you're going to hear some kind of mixtures of an elusive copper penny. But then you'll find out that copper was pretty well normal until 1982. And then after 82, 83, in 83, they introduced the zinc penny. But we have actually came upon some 83 copper pennies, and there's been some other copper pennies that's gotten out in some different planches that's been put out in circulation. Of course, the rarer the coin, the less coinage, the less minting of one coin, the more rare it is, the more collectible in most cases. And you're looking at something that in the pennies side of it, or we should say cent side, this is so popular because there is so many varieties. There are so many double dies. There's so many mint errors. There's so many just bad planches. There's just so much stuff that goes on when you mass produce a coinage like they have with the cent, that you get all these wonderful varieties. So I really think that there is nobody that knows everything when it comes to penny. And I think that it's great as every day that these are being submitted in. We're having new discoveries, new errors that nobody knew about. And I think that's what makes it really fun whenever you look at what we're dealing with as the penny.
So let's hit
or the cent, I should
the
say.
cent. We're going to use cent and penny interchangeably.
Because it's so ingrained, it ain't going to happen.
It's tough. I use them interchangeably, but I do catch myself grammatically trying to go back to saying cent,
right,
especially when I'm looking things up. But let's talk about the transition. In America, at one time, we had large pennies. I mean, they were bigger than quarters. Mm-hmm. Some of them were the size of quarters. Some were a little bit
really
bigger.
$half size.
Yeah, and they were big. But what happened? Something happened in the 1800s, and we ended up with a small cent. Can you tell us about the history of that?
I can tell you a little bit, and actually I have my cheat sheet here because once again, there's so much when you get into to coinage. But I knew it was in February 21st, 1857. There was a new copper nickel alloy that was to come out, and it was because of a trade that I know that was going on. They wanted to lessen the size of the cent because of the weightage, because of the cost of copper at the time.
Yeah.
And so what you have is you had them going from the large copper cents that honestly was, if we'd have stayed with that coinage as far as our currency, it would have been worth way more than a cent. So to make for the change of the copper pricing, they had to lower the size of the coin in diameter to create something that used to be about as big as $half, that is now the size of what we know as our modern day penny today.
And that was come out. There were in 1856, I say, some preliminary coins that were just kind of shown about. Mm-hmm. Okay. But what did we end up with? What was the first small cent?
Well, let me throw this out because what you said about the preliminary is very important. The very first small cent coin we got out was the Flying Eagle. That's what you can see here. This is a beautiful 1857 small lettered Flying Eagle. And I want to let this be known that there is an 1856 out there. In 1856, when different cents were being shown out, different types of coinages were being passed around as maybe the ideals of the type of strikes there would be. This is the coin that won out, but now I think that there was, if I remember, it's about 1,500 of the 1856 was actually put out. And if you look at this coin here, this has got some real good detail. The 1857, that right there is the obverse. Then on the back, you see the reverse where it says literally 1 cent. So that kept the numeric value on it. And then I'll show you in 1858. So this right here is what you're going to see is what we call the common years as far as the flying cent is 1857 and the 1858, and give you a real good view of both of those. And then your 1856, it being between 1,000 and 15,000. I want also be known that less than 18 million was made of the 1857, and less than 25 million was made of the 1858. So when it comes to cents, there really wasn't that many of them made in general. There were very, very low mintage for those couple of years that they had those particular coins in production.
So we only have a very few 1856 and not many 1857 and 1858. So what happened to the poor flying eagle? Why did it have essentially a 2.5 year duration?
Well, you're going to hear people different theories on this. Some are going to be the dye demand. They said that the feathers on the eagle, in fact, I don't really take a real good close. You can barely on the 1858, you can kind of see the feather lines on this one. And some of the theory is that the die just was not a good design for the die. They had a hard time pressing in these coins. They were 80. It was 0.880 copper. It should have been able to be pressed and hold a good design, but in this particular years, with the design of the bird, that they were worried that it was never going to hold up over the test of time because the strike just kept deteriorating, and they were having to replace the dies so often.
Oh goodness!
In fact, you've got 4 varieties just in the 1858 alone. That shows you how many dies that had to be changed out.
So what are the 4 varieties in 1858?
Okay, so you have the standard 1858 strike. You have the large letters. You have the 8 over the 7, which is the more valuable of the coins, and then you have the small letters. And then this one here I thought was very interesting because I bought this off of a really good numismatic guy, and he told me, he said, you need to check this out. This is one that I happen to have. This in 1857 small letter. And the reason we know they're small letter, and a lot of the books don't even have these, we're going to submit this one because on a standard 57, you can see a very, very noticeable difference in the size of the font of the letters that are being used. And so on the 57, they're now starting to think that at the same time, they may have a lettering size, so that would create 2 varieties. There would be a small and large as well.
Fantastic. Neat. So the death of the flying eagle, struck out by improper die, improper mechanisms, it flew the coop, so to say. But the small cent was not dead. Henceforth comes the most popular cent to ever be small, still highly valuable, and people look at it, they go, wow. And that would be what?
The Indian head.
The Indian head.
And I'll tell you some cool things about this one. I'll show you I have these 2 that are actually, I got these little sets. I love these sets. I absolutely love them. They have a lot of American history with them. But I'll tell you something really cool about the Indian head cent as I show you this one a little bit closer, the obverse and the reverse. Whenever you're talking about the Indian head, this is actually Lady Liberty wearing a headdress. And I think that's always pretty cool. And it came out in 1859, and it ran, of course, to 1909. And I'm going to tell you right now, I still think this is one of the most popular particular designs that are still out there. They seem to be always highly sought after. I think it's one of the most popular still today to being collected.
The Indian head penny also has the unique awesomeness of having varieties as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's not just an 1899 Indian head. In 1899, there are some varieties in there. There are some double dies. There are some coinage errors. There are some where they've clipped them wrong. So there are, in that particular genre, there is a lot of fantastic varieties that you can find in the Indian head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty cool, even up until like what, 1908? And then in 1908, they let San Francisco start minting
grab in on it, yeah.
a few of them. So now you've got the 1908 and the 1908S.
Right.
And the 1908S is a pretty valuable coin.
Well, you know what's really cool about the Indian head penny too is that it started its first year of minting with varieties. They had on the reverse, and we told you all you're going to hear a lot of this language, and you're going to get to understand it. So on the reverse, so I'll show you one with a shield. This is with the shield. And you see right there the shield at the top of the reef. They actually started making this penny, this cent, I apologize, first off without that shield. It was just a reef and no shield. So this penny and this cent in its first year of production, I thought was always really cool, is that they started out with two different varieties you have there. And then it kind of goes from there with everything from dyes to just rarity to double lettering. The double Liberty, let me look on here, is in the 1873. There's a double Liberty that is one of the most sought after of these, because in an MS60 grade is $7,500.
Yes, yeah, beautiful value that is in there. There are a lot of graded Indian head pennies.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common coin to send off to Annex or one of these other graded companies. But the realities is, how many like MS65 and mint grades do you find in the Indian heads?
Oh, and 65. 65's pretty hard in about anything that's been circulated. There are not a lot out there.
Were they producing proof sets for the Indian head back in those days?
No, there's no proof set out there for it. But I will tell you this. With this particular strike, if one of your grandparents put a penny up, which I just kind of grabbed one or two, and these right here, these are heavily circulated, but you can still see great detail in them. You can still see the obverse and the reverse, great detail, the feathers and stuff. One great thing about this strike is because the strike was done so well that if somebody did put this particular coin up, listen, you could find that proof-like finish. You could find the great detail on them.
Yeah.
But it was so funny. People, when they start collecting coins, they always want to go for that big gold piece that's out there. And can I tell you, I think it's like anything else. You need to start out with the most vintage coin, start learning it, and then build up. And I'm going to tell you something, there's nothing more fascinating than the history of the Indian head penny.
That's right. It's fantastic. So then we went from the Indian head penny, and all of a sudden, we hit 1909.
Yes, sir.
Now, 1909 is an awesome year because you had the 1909 Indian head.
Yep.
The 1909 S Indian head.
Right.
And then the most anticipated coin of 1909, the new Lincoln wheat penny.
Right.
And then you had the 1909 S wheat Lincoln penny. And the 1909 VDB,
That's right.
Lincoln wheat penny. And then the Holy Grail, the 1909 S VDB penny.
Right.
Speak a little bit about what is that?
That's four.
6 varieties in 1909.
Yeah, 6 varieties. That's right.
6 varieties in 1909, in that year alone.
Well, and you know what's incredible? I want to share something with you all today. That I think is, I think this is my fascination with numismatics. I don't have a particular thing that I collect. I enjoy new. I enjoy seeing something for the first time, holding it for the first time. And, you look at the history today alone, me and Keaton were able to put a 1909 S Indian head penny in our hand, a 1909 S VDB in our hand. I mean, that's not a common coin. In fact, the 1909 SVDB, only 484,000 of those pennies were made. And look at you bringing it in here. So this, of course, will be for sale. And I want to show this to you real quick. And so this is an absolute treasure that we get to hold this in our hand and actually have this little part of history. And what an honor it is that we get to have it. And then I'm going to show them that one as well. This one will not be for sale. It is already sold, but it is absolutely beautiful. And the fact that we have these in our hands, and I'm going to try not to tear the plastic. You may not get the best picture of that, but I'm going to try to do that without tearing the holder that it's in by folding it. But I want you to see that because, yes, you have 6 varieties, and then in those 6 varieties, in the 1909 VDB, you have a proof. The proof alone is a $12,500 coin. Wow.
But tell them what a non-proof is worth, even if you've got one that's just
G4.
G4.
It's $750 for you. For a penny. I mean, I think about that. That's an incredible return on the penny. But can I tell you that it's not just those rare coins that are valuable. There is coins when you start dealing with the Lincoln cent that is out there. For instance, I'll grab some quick numbers.
Well, the 1914D.
Yeah, the 1914D was 1.1 million made at 1.193, so almost 1.2 million made of those. And here's the beautiful thing: a G4, which means you barely see the date and you can read the coin, is $165. Yeah. You get up in an MS grade, you're talking about a $2,100 coin. And now this is just going by Red Book. Some coins will bring more once they hit the online, but I always use this book as kind of a general guideline. But then you have like the 1922. You'll hear this phrase. They have 1922 had the D, the no D, and the weak D. Yes. It's always minted in the same Denver mintage, but the way that it was struck and how it came out is what mattered. And in 1922, if you get a standard D, you have a $20 coin. If you have a no D, you have a $450 coin. And then if you have a weak D, it's still around a $25 to $30 coin. And I think that's fantastic that you have a one coin made in Denver that year, put out into the mint. The Denver Mint has 3 quick varieties, and then it has a 4th if you're going to do the no D weak reverse, and that's $100. And by the way, these prices I'm giving you are G4. If you were to go MS in the no D, you're looking at $8,500 on the no D at 1922. And to let you know, there is not a count on how many were not D. So
there was
a lot of pennies were made that year, though.
A very interesting history for me, and Mike is greatly involved in this. I bought some pennies at an estate sale, some wheat pennies, and I was going through those pennies, and I found a 1923 no D, and I found a 1922 no D. I did not know that the 1922 no D was valuable. I did not know that. And I was so excited to find this 1923 penny. I don't know. I was just really excited about it. And so I took a picture of it and all this kind of stuff, and I sent it to Mike on his phone, and he said back, "Boy, that's a beautiful coin, He's giving me all this lip service and making me feel good about myself, and,
what friends are for.
Tolerating my nonsense." And he says, "Boy, but if you had a 1922 no D, boy, you'd really have something." And I was like, "Well, I've got one of those sitting right here." And I took a picture of it and sent it to him. And all of a sudden, he's calling me on the phone. "Dude, where did you get that penny?" I was like, "Well, I found it." He said, "Do you even know what you have?" I was like, a 1922 penny that doesn't have a D on it. So then I started researching and looking, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we submitted that penny to PCGS."
Yes, we're still
we're waiting on it to come
We've
back.
submitted them back in June 10th. So PCGS, if somebody from there watches this, it's really been since June 10th.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. So for knowledgeable sakes, to throw this out to you, there is no Philadelphia mint of that year. So if you have a 1922 penny that has no mint mark, you have a 1922 no D.
That's right.
So a lot of people don't know that, but yeah, in 22 there was no Philadelphia mint mark at that time.
Yeah. And so here we go.
There was Philadelphia just that particular year. The Philadelphia didn't put them out.
So we can go on and on and on about wheat pennies, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of
all these
varieties.
Yeah.
And even like a 1919S, if you have one that is a maybe a barely uncirculated, those coins can go for $60 to $100 each. I mean, they can be very nice, and it goes on up. If you get a 1955 that's doubled, you got the actual double die on the front of it. Those things can go for thousands of dollars.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at the 55 double die. I think in VF condition and the double die is $1,250 just for the $1,250. Now, if it's an MS 65, you're looking at 15,000 north of what you're going to be dealing with that coin.
And so the mints back in those days, to try to save money, they had, like the Denver mint, when they were done, they would send it to the San Francisco mint.
Right.
The San Francisco mint would try to sand down the D and then put an S on there. Mm-hmm. But if they didn't do a good job, all of a sudden you'd have a 1937 D with an S also printed on the coin, or a D with an S over top of it. And you can see those mint error marks, which makes those coins also quite valuable. And they're well identified. You can go to Wexler's website. You can go to Coin Error website. You can go to USA Coin. And you can look at all sorts of these mint varieties, double mint marks. You can look at, sometimes there'll be 2 D's on the coin. Mm-hmm. There'll be 2 S's on the coin. Sometimes you'll have a D over top of an S, an S over top of a D. And it goes on and on, because you can have 2 gods on there. You can have 2 liberties. I mean, it's amazing. And we have some coins that have 2 earlobes.
Yeah,
which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, the double earlobe is a very sought after coin actually for people that collect varieties. And I want to also make sure that we let you all know now there are mint sets. What we call you'll have your uncirculated Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco.
This is a mint set. Right?
This is a mint set here. Okay. That you can actually get these mint sets, but they go all the way back for as far as the mint set is 1947, and then as far as the proof sets, they go all the way back to 1936. So if you remember some of the things we were talking about with the different varieties of pennies, you don't want to just say, well, that's my mint set, I'm sure it's perfect, there's nothing wrong with it. In 1960, they had the large date and small date varieties, and both of those go for $35 and $40, but the crown jewel of those particular cent sets is the small date and large date pennies. So when you get to looking through the 1970S with a small date cent, $85. And so it's really amazing. People will say, well, I got a mint set, and I'm sure my proof set and my mint sets are perfect, but they're not. There is known errors that were put in there, and maybe not even errors. You know, small date's not an error. It's just a variety. And inside your mint sets and your proof sets that you got thrown up in that closet, you might want to check those pennies, those cents that are up in there.
You know, we spend a lot of time on the value of these pennies, and you know, the value of the penny is not just the only thing. It's the thrill of the hunt.
Oh yeah, it's about finding it.
To find it,
right.
And then, you know, fishing is awesome. I mean, you go out and you fish and you catch a bass. And I'm telling you, as a kid and even now as an adult, whether I catch a fish this big or a fish this big, I was fishing, I caught a fish, it's fun. Mm-hmm. But boy, I tell you what, there's something when you catch that 9-pound bass, you know. That's just something special. So when you catch a penny that is a 1955 double and it's worth $1,000, I mean, that's just the coolest feeling in the world. And you may never, ever sell that penny.
Yeah, I think a lot of times for people, it's not about the value is about selling. It's the value that they have something that they have got not only historical value, but now they've got kind of a family value that they can pass this rare coin on down to the next generation. You know, and it's amazing to me, a lot of people, you know, that gets into collecting. It's funny, when you look at the lineage that started it, I had a grandfather that was a collector. My dad dabbled in collecting. I collected. Your granddad passed his collection down to you. And so it's not just always about finding that value just to sell it, because sometimes you find that value and now you've got something that you can put up that's yours, that you have, that maybe later on you like to trade it for something like this, that comes out. And this is actually out of a private collection, and this is the wonderful Cheerios penny. And so these are things that they're not going to make this penny no more. So once you sell this, you may not get it back. Now, if you want to sell, we're always here to buy your collections. We're always here to trade with you. But I'm with Keaton. A lot of times when people find out what they have, they realize that this is something special that they've got.
Amen. Londoncoinbuyer at gmail.com.
Right.
I'll just throw that little thing. What's your phone number?
606-401-7025.
So then in 1958, the inevitable happened. Somebody come along and says, I've got an idea. It's time to retire the wheat penny. And so now we have the new era. In 1959, the launch of the Lincoln Memorial.
Right.
So tell us about the Lincoln Memorial penny.
It was just a time when they were wanting to change up the queue. Of course, the Lincoln is the most popular. Since it came out, it has been one of the most beloved. It's very American. It really is.
It's very
if you ask probably, and I'm not putting words in other people's mouths, but I would say roughly if you ask 90% of Americans, who is your favorite president ever? A lot of them are going to say Abraham Lincoln.
They will.
So what they've done, they took the beautiful, monument that's down in Washington, D.C., and they decided to put it on the back and make it a true, full Lincoln penny. And it's just absolutely beautiful. In fact, we don't have a good display. I'm not going to open that one. Oh, yes, we do. Here we go. There it is right there. And it is, what spells more American than something that not only was one of the most favorite presidents of all time, but is also a monument down in Washington, D.C.
Fantastic. It's 2009, not
2019.
2019.
Yeah.
They had a whole sort of different type of Lincoln pennies that come out. And, of course, Mike's got the whole collection right here that you could buy if you wanted all four of those different mint sets in that right there. But there are varieties, and so right now I'd like to talk about some famous pennies. Could we do that just for a minute? So let's go back to the wheat penny, the 1943 steel.
Yes.
Address that just a little bit.
Okay, so in 1943, of course, the height of World War II was now in full swing. And, you would think you need steel for war, but the problem is you can't have a war without bullets. So copper has started becoming very, very, very scarce due to the fact that we were literally building a war machine to fight overseas with. So in 1943, they took the steel and made the steel penny. And incredibly, of course, when you're making millions of coins each day, or each year, in 43, they had planchets, copper planchets that snuck into to each of the dies, and there was some that were made that year in the 43 on copper. But the standard 1943 penny was the only year that they had a steel penny that was made. That was what was created for circulation at that time. Some of the copper did slide in there, and even more amazingly, some silver got into that mix. But the standard penny that year, because of the war that was going on, was a steel penny. And of course, your copper and silver are very valuable if you find them.
If you find a copper 1943, you're going to be able to retire.
Retire, yes, that would be the best way.
And if you find a silver one, not only are you going to be able to retire, but your children are going to be able to retire as well.
Right.
But that's not it. There was a transition back to copper in 1944.
So in 1943, all three mints of the three popular mints was the Philadelphia, the Denver, and the San Francisco, all made the steel. In fact, we have steel sets. We have a lot of steel pennies. I didn't bring none out to show, but you say, how do I know if it's steel? Put a magnet to it. The magnet picks it up, and you've got a steel penny. But what happens is in 1944, they now need steel. And so they wanted to transition back over to the copper penny. Well, if you already had some mess ups in 43 with some planes weren't supposed to be in there, got in, well, now you've mass produced, I'm wanting to say somewhere around 3 million, something like that. Not 3 million, but around 3 billion almost. Okay, not quite 1 billion. 1 billion pennies roughly got made that year. And so what happens is in 1944, they do the transition back over to the copper. Steel planchets got mixed in. Silver somehow got mixed in again. And so what you had is you had them mass producing these out. And so in 1944, the standard penny should be a copper penny, but instead you do have its steel and silver varieties out there. Fantastic. Very rare, very scarce. If you have what looks like a steel penny and you stick a magnet to it, and when you stick the magnet to it, it don't stick, you need to call me. We need to get that penny checked out.
Yeah, we do. Okay, fantastic. And so then, in 1982, again, a transition year.
Yes.
They wanted to go from copper to zinc.
Right.
And so we have all of these known, but there was one particular penny, and you need to pay attention to this. There was one particular penny variety that was never, ever, ever, ever supposed to have a copper planchet. But they some out there. The 1982 small text was never supposed to have any coppers whatsoever. But lo and behold, the 1982D small text, there's some coppers that have been found out there.
Beautiful. See, I didn't even know about the 82. I knew the 83 was one that wasn't supposed to have it as well. We have got one submitted and two on hold right now.
The 1982 small text D, we have two of them.
Two of those. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. The 82, we've got two of them.
Yeah.
But they're not supposed to be out there. But
then again, the 1983 also got messed up, and there's some copper 1983s.
Right. And I think we have one of those. I think we have two of the 82Ds and one of the 83s that are 3.1 grams.
Yes. And if you find a 1983 copper penny, it's also worth quite a bit of money. Mm-hmm. And so is the 1982 small text D copper penny. So if you find any of those are very valuable.
Right. Yeah. They. I would hate to put even a small bit. If it's just a G4, real. I mean, just barely read the date. It's got some detail to it. You've got a very valuable coin. And listen, there has been. And if you want to say, well, I've got 82Ds, I've got 83. How do I check the weight? It's 2.5 for the zinc penny. It's 3.1 for the copper, and that'll let you know what kind of alloy you have.
Fantastic. All right. So there are no pennies from the Flying Eagle all the way up to the 2022 penny. There are no pennies that are invaluable. They all have some value.
Right.
And even if you find one that's rusted out and you can't read it, you can still take it to the bank. The bank will give you a brand new penny for it.
Right.
So there's no invaluable penny out there. And so if you're collecting pennies, they all have not only intrinsic value, but they also have emotional value too, because they're just darn fun to collect.
And I'll throw this out too for a lot of you that may not know this. 1982 and previous years, you have got copper in the pennies. So if you're like one of those that really likes to stack, I know guys that love to stack gold, they love to stack silver, and then I know guys that love to stack copper along with that. So if you're a copper stacker, then you need to know that you have copper pre-1982. You've got a copper penny. You have copper in your penny anyway.
Fantastic. All right, I've enjoyed talking about pennies. We could go on and on and on and on about pennies.
So much with pennies.
And I do love to look at them. I do love to play with them. I do love to collect them. And I just absolutely love it. I found Mike the other day, and we was talking, and I found a 1943 steel penny that had a double D mint mark on it. It was double stamped. And I tell you what, the penny's not worth $20.
But it's awesome.
But it's awesome. And I found it cherry picking, and I loved that penny. I was so glad to find it. And that's just the excitement of doing some penny searching and collecting coins. And so, anything else you want to say?
No,
Brother,
just let us know if there's anything we can do to help you with your collection. We have a large variety, and if you like to search coin rolls, if you say, well, I just like to grab coin rolls and pop them open, we do sell coin rolls like this that we will take, and some of them may be marked like this is all 1970s, and we'll put them in there, and if we know pretty much what's in there, we'll kind of write on there. But if not, there may be just some that were put in there, and you can have fun coin roll hunting, and you can let me know if you want those as well.
And if you like to just stack copper, we got some of that to sell
Have
as
at
well.
it. Yeah, there's a lot of it.
I say we, but you. And so here's the star, Brother Mike Hargis. So excited to be with you talking about pennies today. Londoncoinbuyer at gmail.com. And your phone number again?
606-401-7025. And you all may not know this, but Keaton's being very humble today because he's actually been dubbed the Penny King. God bless you all. We'll see you next time.
God bless you.
God bless you. That's good.
I know you think I'm ignorant. It's okay.
Penny for your thoughts.
Penny for
Amen.
your thoughts. I've been thinking about them all day.